hours of content a week.
5 hours content. Well, we're live, so you might as well say hi to everybody.
What's up, everybody? How we doing?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Vidal, and if I could tell you how excited and anxious I was about today's interview, I couldn't be able to put it on paper. Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Real quick before we get started, my name is Alex Vidal. I'm the president of Related ISG International Realty and host of the show you are watching today, episode number 40. So with number 40, we're changing the name. It's no longer Inquiring Minds Want to Know. The show is now called The Closer Club because anybody who's successful in business is a closer. You're inaugurating The Closer Club with episode number 40. One of the things that Tom is known for is, aside from everything I'm about to mention, are his introductions. So I kind of practice this introduction a little bit. I'm going to see if I get it right, and then we're going to get right into some amazing content for you guys. Tom Bilyeu is the founder of Quest Nutrition. It is one of the largest, is it the largest supplement
well, we don't consider ourselves a supplement company.
What would you
Is it
consider?
the largest? I actually don't know. We were the fastest growing. How about that?
Okay, so that's number 2. One of the largest nutritional companies on the planet. In the Inc. 500, number 2 fastest growing company ever at 57,000% in just 3 years. What I love most about Quest Nutrition is the reason for which Tom even found the company. It was founded on his why. I know you've had Simon Sinek, and why is a big part of my life as well. Prior to starting Quest, though, he became a millionaire at a technology company where he started off as a copywriter. And you would think that just because he became a millionaire, he'd want to stay, but he actually left because he wasn't happy. And his purpose of his why turned into Quest Nutrition. Interestingly enough, he was recruited into the technology company as a teacher at USC, where his goal was to be rich and to be ripped. And these two guys that were rich and ripped walked in, and they recruited Tom. Prior to that, he was a student at USC. I actually worked out right by USC this morning. And interestingly enough, his mom actually asked him to leave the house after high school because she figured, well, let me get him out of the house. But she always thought he would come back, thinking he probably wouldn't make it. And he made it in a big way, never made it back. And here we are interviewing him for The Closer Club.
Yes,
thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
How'd I do?
You did good. There was the one factual thing I will just correct. I was teaching at the New York Film Academy.
Okay.
So, teaching there, and that was at the time where I met the guys that would become my partners. And
the unicorns.
Yes.
Got it.
And they offered me the role as a copywriter.
Right. Yeah. So, Tom, tell us a little bit. I mean, maybe I covered it all right now, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to do things differently in this interview compared to the other ones. But tell us a little bit about your backstory. How are we, we're in Bel Air sitting down in your home today interviewing. Tell us about your backstory. How did it all come about, Quest, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so...
and I'll relax back because I'm nervous, so I'm gonna sit back and calm down a little bit.
Come on, we'll have some fun with this. Sorry, please.
I forgot something. He is the host. I'm wearing the shirt. It's the excitement. He is the host of a show called Impact Theory. If you've never seen it before, it is a show that I watch religiously. Actually, it's one of the reasons why I don't even listen to music anymore in the car. It will change your life. Okay, go. Right. Sorry about that.
No, not a problem at all, man. So I'll try to go through this fast since I know you want to take the show somewhere new. So you covered all the highlights. So it was, met these 2 guys while I was teaching, and they said, look, you're coming to the world with your hand out. And because I wanted to be a filmmaker. And so they said, if you want to control the art, you have to control the resources. So why don't you come with us and get rich? And I'd had an obsession with getting rich since I was a little kid. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. We thought it would take about 18 months, build this tech company up, sell it off, and we'd be laughing all the way to the bank. Sure. And on paper, at about the 6.5 year mark, so thought it would take 18 months, 6.5 years later, we still haven't sold. But on paper, I'm probably worth about $2 million. I think at the height, the company was valued at $22 million. And not long after that, I was like, I'm so profoundly unhappy. I'm just chasing money. I'm living for the dollar. I don't have any passion for this. I don't believe in the product. And it was just horrible. And so I wanted to do something that made me feel alive. So after feeling that way for a very long period of time, I went, talked to my wife, and I said, look, I know I promised that I would make you rich. Because there was a huge difference between paper money, which was where I was quote unquote wealthy, and real bank account money. And I had no bank account money.
Interesting. I see. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So it's one of those where I was giving up equity. And I think there's a lot of confusion on that for people where it's like, just because you have a lot of money in equity doesn't mean you actually have a lot of money. So I felt like a normal person. We were getting by that point. I was making an okay salary, but on paper, I was worth probably about $2 million. So I went in and I said, look, I can't keep doing this. I quit. And they said, we could do this without you, but we don't want to. Okay. And that let me connect to something other than the money. And so I had done the hard thing because I was really ashamed of quitting. And I think that gets lost in my story because people see it now looking back and they see that it ended up working out. At the time, it was deeply shameful. Wow. I was like, because I was quitting. It's when you quit, like you don't know, is this me being a wuss? Am I just giving up? Or is this smart? And I think that quitting is sometimes the absolute right answer. But when you're in the middle of it, it's a hard choice. You don't know. Yeah. And so I didn't know if it was the right answer. I felt like I was abandoning my brothers. I mean, I'd been working with them, like I said, for about 6.5 years at that point. But I was just so unhappy. And so I was like, I have to do something different. So they said that, let me connect to something. And so I said, all right, if we're going to keep working together, I've done the hard part. I've quit. I've faced my shame and all that. Let me tell you the truth of what my life has to look like for me to enjoy my life. It would need to be something that we're creating that's based on value creation. So it can't be just trying to sell something. It can't be about just profitability. It's got to be about something that adds value to people's lives. Okay. And I kept saying, I need my real personality to shine. Now we would say I need to be authentic, but nobody was saying that word back then. So I was just saying.
And how old were you when this was going on?
At the time, what would I have been? Like 29, 30, maybe 31. This would have been 2007, 8, something like that. Yeah, probably close to 2008. And I am trying to, lay all this out and be really honest and be upfront about what I would need to emotionally thrive. And so it was add value. It was really be myself. It was something that was going to be entirely based on passion. And I said, I think there's a whole new way of marketing that's about to kick off and we should take advantage of it. We now, of course, call it social media, but it wasn't called that back then. So I pulled my partners aside. I mean, I'm like condensing a time period here, but I pulled my partners aside and I said, let me lay out for you what I think is the future of marketing. And I said, it's about this whole notion, Kevin Kelly's notion of 1,000 true fans. I said, if we can really serve them, if we can really change their lives and add value and build community and celebrate them, and instead of trying to sell to them, if we create a marketing vehicle that's like Fight Club, I said the first rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. Yeah. I said the first rule of what ended up being Quest is going to be don't talk about Quest. Do what we ended up calling mirror marketing. So it's like reflect them back on what they want, what's going to empower them and celebrate them. And so we started sharing recipes and things that we thought would work for them. And when they posted something that we would share it back. And so all of this stuff now is like, it's the standard, right? It's called user-generated content. But back then it was just like, our community's rad, let's share their stuff. So we were hyped on that. And I wanted to get back into filmmaking. So we started creating all of our own content largely as a way for me to explore that side, to be around artists again, to be filming things, to have an art team that was awesome and could create everything from packaging to rad social content. Okay. And so we were doing everything not because we thought it was smart marketing, we were doing it because, like you were saying, Simon Sinek, to come at it from the perspective of like, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do to want to add value to people's lives. It's the right thing to do to be honorable in business, to not try to eke out every single dollar you can, but to really ask yourself what's going to add value to my customers. So it was like everything was the right thing. We wanted a product that was metabolically real at a time where the world is waking up to the fact that they really need to eat better. Mm-hmm. We wanted marketing that was adding value in and of itself. So it wasn't just trying to close a sale. It was really trying to add value. So even if you never bought anything from us, you'd want to interact with our social accounts. And so doing all of this stuff and for the right reasons. And for me, because I'll say that we founded the company for 3 very different reasons. I was in the middle of an emotional crisis. And I had grown up in a morbidly obese family. So that whole notion of I wanted to do something that was passion-based, I could show up every day and fight for my mom and my sister who've been morbidly obese my entire life. And so it was like, I can invest in that. And so when it's really hard and I'm exhausted, just bone tired, I don't have to fall back on money, which is what I always did before. Well, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be rich. And this was, I'm going to help my mom and my sister. So at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, it's like, you can get behind that. Like that gave me the motivation I needed to keep fighting. So it just so happened that we were doing that ahead of the curve because we weren't doing it because we saw some clever moment. Yeah. We were doing it, speaking for myself, because I had this emotional crisis, and the way to get back to a great place emotionally was to build something for myself, for sure, but also to serve, to think about other people, to build community, all of that. And so it hit at the right time.
Now, this is not on here. I know we kind of went over this 2 seconds, because you like to go on the fly, but in a moment of emotional crisis, you had great clarity on what you wanted.
It sounds like that. It sounds like that. Well, yes, I did know what I wanted, in fairness, and thinking, so I don't like things that I haven't earned in my life. That I don't find a lot of value in that, or at least celebrating myself for that. And one thing that I will say, for good and bad, I think obsessively. So once I start looping on something, like I really, really think about it a lot. And so for the probably year and a half, maybe 2 years at the end of Awareness Technologies, before I go in and quit, I'm really not having a good time. And my life is beginning to spiral. And I never was depressed, but I was beginning to damage my marriage, where my wife was like, this isn't fun anymore. You used to be playful. You're not playful anymore. There's like a dark cloud over you. And so as I'm sort of spiraling down, I'm looping in my thoughts about like, what do I want my life to be? And so because like I was looping on that so much, and because I did the hard thing and go in and quit, I already knew what life I was going to try and build. So my wife and I were going to go move to Greece. We were going to just scale our life back to nothing financially. So, because there's 2 ways to become richer. One is to make more money, and 2 is to need less. And so we were going to need less. We were going to move to this like small place on some beautiful remote beach somewhere in Greece. She's Greek. And I was going to, one, learn the language in earnest, which I found really enjoyable because it's hard and you get to, be disciplined about it. And I think that a lot of great things come out of doing the hard things. And then I was going to write. And so that was going to be, and like when you talk about what are those things that you've just killed yourself to get good at, writing was one of them. I'd spent like, by that point, I'm close to a decade focused on writing and storytelling and all of that. So it was going to be sort of this rebirth of that creative side. So to save myself emotionally, I've been looping and looping and looping on what does my ideal life look like. But I'd love to be able to say, oh, I sat down and I mapped it out. It was a time of emotional chaos.
Yeah, no, but to be able to be in that moment of emotional chaos and still be looping, thinking about getting out of the weeds is impressive.
Yeah, the sad thing is I didn't earn that. So that was, now I'll say I understand it.
Okay.
And that's what I want people to understand about my story, is to think that I had like, oh, that clarity back then. No, I was a mess. And that's what I'm saying. It was a deeply shameful time for me. It wasn't the guy that you see before you today. And that's what winds me up. People think that I was like this when I was like 18. No. So I've had to build my mindset, build my belief system, change my value system, all of it to get to a place where I could have a goal and actually move towards it. And that really is like, even I don't talk about this enough. The thing that sits at the core of who I am is an obsession with knowing what my goal is, and then being honest about whether I'm making progress towards it, being honest about what skill set I would need to actually make progress towards it, and constantly gut checking myself against that. And so it all starts with clarity. And so in that moment of crisis, I was so unhappy it gave me clarity. But I had to hit rock bottom first. Like, that's crazy. And so if I hadn't hit emotional rock bottom, I never would have been so miserable that I would have forced myself to figure out what I really wanted.
And I think it was, I heard you're going to have Tim's story on in a few weeks on your show. I interviewed Tim back in December, and he actually, that's one of the things he talks about. He's like, you got to have your back against the wall. And that's at the point where most people will react and actually start moving their life forward.
Right.
Now, as we kind of discussed, there's the different direction I want to go with you is, this is episode number 40. I've interviewed from billionaires down. And there's really 5, and I would love if maybe I'm missing something, okay? So add, please. But there's 5 common denominators that I have found among pretty much the most successful that I've interviewed. I want to go through each one and kind of see how maybe it's because I relate to them, I don't know, how they impacted your life or how they played a role in your life. So let's talk about the first one, which is dreaming big. I think it's very cliche, it's very corny, but interestingly enough, you talk to anybody who's really successful, they dream really, really big. What would you say was like the biggest dream of your life, or when you looked at it on paper, you were like, holy shit, that scares me? Did you have a dream like that?
Yeah, now I would say is probably the closest thing that I had to that. It's interesting. I won't say that I look at something and go, oh wow, that scares me.
Okay.
It's more like I'm not the person I need to be to execute against this yet. And am I going to be able to become it? I think it would scare me if I valued myself on whether or not I pull it off. So my dream right now is I want to pull people out of the matrix by giving them an empowering mindset at scale by building the next Disney and only telling one kind of story from 1,000 different angles, both fiction and nonfiction, all about empowerment, right? How do you build a belief system that allows you to do whatever you want? To be able to dream that big. So piece by piece over a very long period of time, I got to the point where I could dream big without feeling like I was BSing myself. And so now my dreams feel very real. Like I know that it is possible. It does not violate the laws of physics to build the next Disney, right? I think we can all agree on that. So since it doesn't violate the laws of physics, I know that I can do it. It's just a question of whether or not I'll do the things I need to do in order to actually do it.
Got it.
So, and then will I have a long enough timeline? Because look, to build the next Disney is going to take, 70 years? I mean, it would take just an inhumanly long period of time. And while I do plan to be alive in 70 years, that's a very big undertaking. Yeah. So I look at that and say, okay, this is huge. And that big dream can be one of two things. It can really be the thing that you just relentlessly go after, or it can be your North Star. So I will say right now, I'm relentlessly going after it. It's very real in my life, and I make decisions and I act as if. But I'm very okay if 50 years from now, it ended up just being a North Star and I was never able to pull it off, but I acted sincerely in the pursuit of that. So I know that my identity is not tied up in accomplishing it. My identity is tied up in sincerely pursuing it.
Got it.
So that's a big difference. So I look at a dream, and the only reason I guess for it to scare you is if you think there's some detriment to not making it. So yeah, I don't see that.
And you referenced The Matrix about breaking the mold of dreaming big. I had never watched The Matrix, and coincidentally, you talk about it a lot. I know. I got 4 boys, 21, 12, and 9-year-old twins.
I can't believe I didn't.
It's okay. It's all good. This is the beauty of going live. And but coincidentally, on my flight over, they had The Matrix on the
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch The Matrix, and I could see why you love it so much.
Yeah.
Especially the part where when he gets programmed the kung fu and he starts to fight Morpheus, and halfway through the fight, it clicks in his head. Like, oh my God, that to me was like the scene of the movie. I know you've talked about the other scene in the beginning and all that, but that to me was the scene in the movie for me. Number 2, they're very careful who they get their advice from. So my wife's a pediatrician, right? A pediatric nurse practitioner. If my kids are sick, I run a real estate company. If my kids are sick, don't come to me for advice. Go to her. How did you kind of mitigate or audit who you would get your advice from when you were going through the process of building Quest, or maybe even the technology company? And how would you gauge who you would listen to and who you wouldn't listen to in terms of your advice?
So I think Ray Dalio probably has the best advice on this. And if you haven't read his book, Principles, so Ray Dalio is the largest hedge fund manager of all time. His company, Bridgewater, is extraordinarily successful. I think he's in the top 100 rich people alive. It may even be higher. He may be like...
Just top 100?
Yeah. Come on. I mean, this guy is crazy. So he is extraordinary. And he said that the world is a meritocracy. Not everybody's opinion on everything is equally relevant. Mm-hmm. And he said the easiest way to know is, has this person had success in the arena that they're giving you advice on at least 3 times? If the answer is yes, then you can probably trust them.
Can you repeat that for me?
Does the person that you're seeking advice from have success in the arena in which you're seeking advice at least 3 times?
Interesting.
If the answer is yes, then you know that you can take their word for it. And if not, then you probably can't. But he said that doesn't mean that people don't have powerful insights, but then you just need their logic. So rather than looking at what they're telling you to do, get their logic as to why they're telling you that. And then you can process through their logic. And if their logic makes sense, then it might be worth following, whether or not they've ever been successful like that or not. But he said, don't just take their endpoint into consideration if they haven't been successful. And I thought, that makes a lot of sense.
That seems very legit. I love that, especially the logic piece.
Right.
Because, when you think about it, how many times have people accomplished something that you're trying to do 3 times over? There's probably not. So you're probably deferring to the logic behind how they got to their endpoint more than you are relying on their success.
No question.
Never heard that before. That's really cool. Third one, they pay to surround themselves with the right mentors and the right coaches. So I have big goals in my life. And I technically have what I joke around, I have 3 people on my payroll. Okay. And what I mean by that is, so one of my goals is I want to get ripped. Okay. I got to keep up with my wife. She's ripped. Our wives are ultra competitive. Yeah. And I have the same love for her as you do for your wife. And I said, well, I got to look good for her. I want to look good for myself, but I hired a nutritionist, right? Got ripped. I'm getting ripped. I'm on my way. I wanted a sounding board. I wanted the clarity. So I went back to Jack, who's a therapist that I had for many years. He's amazing. And I got him just to have a sounding board, unbiased, somebody more than anything, just to be able to talk. Mm-hmm. And then from a business perspective, I hired a business coach by the name of Brad Lee, who owns Lightspeed Virtual Training. Who, his clients are Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, Damon John. So, and you're paying to be in that circle too, right? When you're connected to a guy like Brad. Did you ever, at your point in time, when you're going through all the growth that you were going through, pay to have a mentor, or pay to play in those circles where you were? Because what do they say? Your network is your net worth. Right. Talk to me about how that played a role in the growth of Quest and everything that you're trying to do now.
So depending on how you let me define pay,
sure.
The big thing for me has always been time and reading. So the guys that ended up being my partners at Quest, when they came to me first and said, hey, we want to bring you on as a copywriter, that was a big part of why I said yes, was like, man, I feel like I have a lot to learn from these guys. This could really be extraordinary. So I didn't pay them, but I left the world that I was trying to break into, which was filmmaking, and went with them. And I thought, this is a no-lose situation for me. 1, they're paying me a salary, so let's start with that. And then 2, the amount of information I feel I could learn just by being around them would be extraordinary. And then I'm a voracious reader. By that I mean everything I read is basically audible.
Okay, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, so I listen, but to me there's no difference in the ability to synthesize the information. So, but I am voracious. So that's a huge thing. So, but I've never paid for a coach or anything like that. I think it's powerful. It just hasn't been, because I was in an entrepreneurial organization where I could learn by watching what people were doing. That was insanely powerful. Also, a lot of like my early days coming up, this world didn't exist. I wouldn't know how to get a coach, to save my life. So, it was a different time. And now with podcasts and books and YouTube videos, it's like the amount of information you can get is pretty extraordinary.
It's overwhelming. Yeah. You gotta pick and it's funny because I joke with the show, everybody's like, oh, there's a million shows out there. And I realized, because you come across more people that do shows when you start getting into this kind of life, right? Or side life, whatever. And you realize there's 7 billion people out there, number one. And many people are saying the same exact thing, but I connect with you. I connect with Joe Rogan. I love Joe Rogan, right? But there's other speakers that will say the same exact thing, or Simon Sinek, I connect with him, Ed Milet, those guys. But then there are certain guys that say the same thing, and I'm just like, I don't listen to it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Now, question: the common denominator number 4 is, and it's interesting because you've been posting a lot about this lately, is the breakthrough moment. So I've been asking people on the show, what's your breakthrough moment? And some will pinpoint to an actual occasion that happened in their life. Somebody died, this happened, somebody got sick, or I was homeless and I had to go for it or whatever. But what I have found more than anything else off camera, because they're trying to answer the question directly. Off camera, they're talking about, that happened, but leading up to that, I went through this, and this, and this, and this. Talk to us about the effort that went through. You had a breakthrough moment, which was Quest blew up and really took you off financially. That's the breakthrough moment, right? Or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But talk to me about the collection of moments that led up to that, or the grunt work that you had to put in to get to that breakthrough moment.
Yeah, we used to joke that Quest was an overnight success, 12 years in the making. And it's just so true that, in terms of universal advice that people really need to hear, I really, really want people to understand success is not guaranteed, but the struggle is. So you're going to struggle. You may be successful. And I think that people have to understand, 1, you need to treat life as a very long timeline event, that this is, to be really cheesy, a marathon and not a sprint. Yep. So figuring out how to love what you're doing on the day-to-day basis, that's the key. So as somebody who has made a substantial amount of money, I will just tell you that the only thing that matters in life is what you think about yourself when you're by yourself. That's going to be the thing that determines whether you enjoy your life, are proud of yourself, or are miserable. So that can't be influenced by money. It just can't. So what people have to focus on are, what are the things that I need to do to have self-respect, self-worth, pride in myself. Like when you have those things, no matter what happens, like success comes and goes. 1 minute you're feeling on top of the world, the next minute you're, feeling at the bottom, and that can happen on the same day.
Yeah.
So it just becomes a question of, well, how do you feel about yourself? Like, do you really think you're putting in the reps? Are you doing the work? Are you doing the hard things? Are you facing the difficult things in your life and moving forward? Do you show courage? Like, it's not that you're never afraid, it's that you move forward in spite of the fear. One of my favorite quotes from Churchill is, success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. So it's like, can you do that? Like, can you stay focused on something, or do you lack grit? Like, all the things that you've chosen to value in your life, are you living up to those or not? And that becomes the thing that will give you what I think matters, which is fulfillment. And that, again, what do you think about yourself when you're by yourself? And I think fulfillment is born of doing hard things. I think it's born of building a skill set that means a lot to you and allows you to serve not only yourself but other people, was hard to gain, and is unique to you. And if you're doing all of that, that's where that self-pride and self-worth comes from. And it's like, as somebody, like, I did not see this coming. I thought I would be the business guy. I always thought that was going to be my identity. And I had become the mindset guy, which was not intentional. It just so happens that to get good at business, you have to do this mindset stuff. So I was saying the mindset stuff as a way to get people to understand how to build their business. And then people just started really resonating with the mindset stuff. So now I've become the guy. People will come up to me at events randomly in streets and be like, yo, I was about to commit suicide and your content is the only thing that got me through. And It's like, whoa. That's super intense, and really makes it abundantly clear to me that the name of the game is that self-worth. And that person, I want to tell them, man, just love yourself. Just love yourself. Right now, the way that you are, just love yourself. But the human mind does not work like that. That person's going to have to earn their self-respect. Now, as much as they can, just accept who you are, where you are. Like, you can say it, it just doesn't land.
Yeah.
So that person, much to my dismay, it's not like I have some moral need for people to do hard things. It's just the reality of the human mind. If you want to have self-worth, you have to do things you think are worthy. So getting people to understand that, getting them to begin going down the road, that's hard. But there's some really basic stuff that people can do. It's hard. That's what makes it valuable. But it's not like they have to go out of their way. It's something that they can do right then. In fact, one of the easiest things you can do is not eat things you want to eat. Don't eat ice cream.
So freaking true. With my nutritionist, it's like, now it's a challenge to myself. Can I get through this Friday night without eating pizza and drinking, and taking one meal at a time? And then you feel good about yourself. And it's like, all of a sudden, hey, I can start seeing some abs and you get towards your goals, the accomplishments. Absolutely. Yes. There's mindset's huge. We do a coaching program in our company, and we've had about 245 agents so far take our coaching program. And the very first thing we cover is mindset. Sean Aker has a great program. He's got a great TED Talk about mindset. It's like 12 minutes. The greatest 12-minute talk you can find on TED Talk. And he talks a lot about gratitude exercises. And you can tell within 3 weeks who are the agents that did the gratitude exercises on a daily basis and those who didn't. Because it literally, their mindset just, they start looking at everything with a different lens, as they say. Last of the common denominators is self-belief. Belief in yourself. But other than that, there's self-doubt. So a few weeks ago, this is my third trip to LA for the show. I came to interview Tom Ferry. And Tom Ferry is the biggest real estate coach. You know Tom?
Yeah.
So I remember I landed like on a late flight on a Monday, and I went to CrossFit in the morning, and the guys at CrossFit were like, "Hey, so you're a new member here?" I'm like, "No, I'm dropping in." They're like, "Oh, how many days are you in town for?" I'm like, "I landed 5 hours ago, literally 5 hours ago, and I fly out in like 4 more hours." Like, "Oh man, you're crazy." Okay, I go interview Tom. Then I go to have lunch after I interview Tom. And the waitress at the restaurant's like, "Do you want to become a rewards member?" And I said, "No, I don't live here. I live in Miami." "Oh, how long are you in town for?" I'm like, "I'm literally in town for 13 hours. Flight here, interview, red eye back." She goes, "Oh my God, you're nuts." And I got in my car and I started texting my wife. And I go, "Babe, I run a real estate company. What am I doing in LA interviewing Tom Ferry?" Like, I'm that moment of self-doubt, I'm having it right now. Interestingly enough, though, as I was typing it, I realized if everybody thinks I'm crazy, I must be on the right track, right? So talk to me about the self-doubt and the belief in yourself as you were going through your progress of your life in terms of conquering the world from Quest and everything else that you're doing.
Well, it's interesting. So to your story, I think it was Peter Diamandis that said, when everybody thinks that you're crazy, you're either really wrong or about to make a big breakthrough. And the friction is you really could be really wrong. And that is a part of the fun for me. And it's part of the power of doubt. Now I'll put self-doubt in a slightly different category, but part of the power of the negative voice in your head, part of the power of doubt is to really check yourself and say, am I just really wrong? Or is there something here? And so developing your instincts so that you can have a visceral reaction to things, that's important. It's a whole other side point. I won't derail on that, but it's a personal...
I know you have an 80-20 rule on that. So
yeah, so, and then in terms of self-doubt, I think that I've become obsessed with getting people to understand that they're hopelessly average. And the reason I want them to acknowledge that they're hopelessly average is in the moment of self-doubt, they don't have to believe anything special about themselves. They need to only believe one thing. Humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. The reason that we're the apex predator to end all apex predators, that we've done things to this planet for good and bad, but certainly put it under our control in a way that no species ever in the history of species has done, is because we can adapt in a way physically and mentally to situations in a way that no other species can. We just have a malleability that every other species lacks. So if we know that's what humans are designed to do, not you as like the special one of the species, just the species. Yeah. So if you can acknowledge that you are a human and that you're simply average, then it's like, okay, you may not be the person that you need to be in order to accomplish. Like if I'm going to have a moment of self-doubt over building the next Disney, I say to myself, okay, well, if you're worried you're not going to be able to pull this off, let me tell you why. Because as of right now, you can't. But that's okay. You're a human. Humans are designed to grow and adapt. So you can learn. So what is it you need to learn? So I get out of these moments of self-doubt by saying, you don't need to be special. You need only to be disciplined and focused and to continue down a path of gaining that skill set. So once I'm willing to acknowledge there's a gap of skills between where I'm at and Bob Iger or Walt Disney. And so how do I cross that chasm? And that becomes very interesting because you do it literally just step by step.
Chipping away.
Yeah. Like what is that skill right now today that I can do that? How could I best spend this hour, this day, this week, this month to make sure that I'm moving towards that? And then don't let your ego get hung up in whether you're doing that right or not. Just get your ego caught up in identifying, being willing to admit that you're wrong and figuring out if you're actually making progress. So when your identity, when your self-esteem is caught up in your willingness to admit when you're wrong, your willingness to stare nakedly at your inadequacies, then all of a sudden, like, the moment of pride becomes to look at, like, I'm doing all these things, but are they right? Are they working? And I'll say that right is, I have a goal, and either these things are moving me towards my goal or they're not. That's it. Yeah. Not I'm a good person, just am I doing the things I actually need to do to move towards this goal? And getting in that loop, that obsessive loop over, I'm proud of myself for admitting that I'm wrong. I'm proud of myself for admitting I'm not making progress. And you want to talk about something that freaks my team out? I speak in binaries. So let's say you worked your ass off on something. You've been at home night after night after night, killing yourself for something. And we'll take my Instagram account. So let's say my Instagram account, I look at it and I'm like, this is shit. And I know that these people, myself included, nobody's putting more time in it than me. And I'll look at it and say, this is shit. It doesn't hurt my self-esteem. It doesn't make me feel badly about myself. And I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm not even saying they're doing a bad job. I'm just saying we have a goal. What we're doing right now is not leading us towards that goal. And the second we can say, without defaming our own character, this is garbage because we're not getting the result that we want, then it's like, hey, cool, let's figure it out. What do we need to do? But most people do, they trip themselves up because they're afraid, one, if I admit that this is garbage, meaning it's not taking us towards our goals. If I admit it's not taking us towards our goals, I'm going to get fired, or it makes me a bad person, or both. And in reality, at least in this company, it's neither. Because what we want people to be either, like, you're going to stick around if you're making mistakes and learning from them, or you're going to get gone because you're making mistakes and you're not learning from them. That's it. So it's not like, did you win at every turn? It's did you learn at every turn? But people, it took me a long time, so I get it, but it takes a really long time to actually begin building your self-esteem around your ability to look at it and go, yeah, this is shit.
Yeah. Interesting. I love it. Last question. I know we've taken a lot of time. Obviously, you have Impact Theory. I told you guys already, watch Impact Theory on YouTube. It's, I'm sure you have the podcast too, but I'm a visual guy. Like I gotta watch it, even if it's sitting on the, I just gotta watch it, right? But if you were to recommend a book, a TED Talk, or a podcast that's not Impact Theory, watch Impact Theory. Trust me, guys. Outside of that, what would you recommend?
The funny thing is I'm not self-promotional at all, so you don't need to watch Impact Theory by all means. I think it's amazing, but the real juice is the book list that I put together. So I put together a book list on impacttheory.com. It's, I think, 27 books long at this point of the things you should read in order to build your mindset to be successful in whatever you want to be successful at. They are the universal principles of success. Number one is Mindset by Carol Dweck. It is the single most important book in the English language, period, bar none. No matter how many books I write in my life, I will never be able to outdo that because it's so foundational. It is the very first thing you need if you're on a road to self-improvement.
Mindset by Carol Dweck. I have a mentor, Emmett Logan, went from essentially being homeless to almost running UPS worldwide. Well, I mean, started loading boxes for UPS at night, and he just worked his way. He just turned 80. Huge mentor of mine in my life. Great mentor to have. Stays on me. He's the one that helps keep me in my lane with a couple other guys, Mike and Craig and all that. But he's a huge Carol Dweck fan. Huge. So he's going to hear you and be like, Alex, I told you.
I like him already, man. Yeah. It's about the most foundational part of your mindset, which is growth mindset or fixed mindset. And everyone falls somewhere on that spectrum. So understanding what they are so that you can aspire to the growth mindset, I think is just beyond critical. So that's the first one. And then there's other books like Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way, which I think is extraordinary. Ray Dalio's Principles, which I think is extraordinary. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin's Extreme Ownership.
Animal.
No question.
And I know you've had David Goggins on. He's an animal.
His book is on there as well.
Do you know that? I listened to that one on audio with my kids in the car, and I was like, "Oh, guys, disregard it's an amazing book."
Yes.
I actually reached out to David. I'm like, "I will do an interview with you while you're running. Right. Like we'll do it running. That's how bad I'll do it with you." And they're obviously super busy right now, so hopefully I'll get them on. But I actually said, everybody's like, "You're crazy. Somebody's got to be on a moped and film you guys as you're going."
Dude, that's so smart. That's how you get it done. And anyone that tells you that you're crazy on stuff like that, they will never achieve. Right. And this is another thing that I do with my team here is no bullshit. What would it take? So no bullshit. If you have to run an ultra marathon with David Goggins or some stretch of it to get the interview with him, then that's what you do.
Hell yeah.
So
I literally told his wife Jennifer, I'm like, he's got to run anyways.
Right.
So might as well do it, But he's got his demand right now. He's a high stock price right now, What about a podcaster and a TED Talk?
I think that there's a lot of TED Talks that are extraordinary. You've already mentioned one, which is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I think
Emmett turned me onto that one. By the way.
Yeah, it's really, really phenomenal. Podcasts, man, there's a lot that are really extraordinary. Sam Harris makes me think. Joe Rogan for the chaos factor of you never know what you're going to get. Jim Quick, who's amazing at training the brain. Jordan Harbinger, whose show, The Jordan Harbinger Show, is amazing. The guy's just a phenomenal world-class interviewer. Man, that list really goes on and on and on.
You gave everybody enough, I think.
Yeah. Anything that Goggins touches is gold. Yeah. So
you had somebody on your show, and his name is escaping me right now, but I was watching it. He's a guy. He was in the real estate business, and now he's into the whole brain science.
Oh, really fast! I have to throw out one more podcast. Jordan Peterson. Let's be nice and controversial. Somebody tells me your audience.
He was actually on Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
a couple times, like 3 times. Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, Jordan Peterson, I'm shocked that he's controversial. I really am shocked. His ideas are powerful, man. Yeah. Really, really powerful. I think people should really give it a listen. Even if you think you're going to hate him, I would give it a shot.
Well, so on your show, you had somebody, he was the real estate guy that, he was like a party kid, and then he started working for this older guy. And the older guy told him, and now he's into brain science. He was on not too long ago. And his mentor asked him, "Are you interested or are you committed?"
Yeah.
And that one line,
Assaraf.
Yes, that one line from that one episode has stuck with me unlike anything else I've watched.
That's interesting. That's to your earlier point that like people can say the same things, but like for some reason when that person said it in that way, it like really grabs you. It's always interesting to see who people respond to. Like on Impact Theory, basically every episode, somebody will say, "This is my favorite episode of all time."
Yeah.
And that's so interesting. I mean, I love that. It's great, right? You get that variety, but I'm always surprised.
Interesting. Yeah. Tom, thank you so much,
Thanks
man.
for having me on, dude.
Thank you for taking your time to have me in your home and
100%.
sit down with you. This set is in his house, which is crazy. I really appreciate it. This blew my expectations away. I'm so happy I jumped on a plane for this. And all right, any parting words? I'm going to go behind the camera for the crew.
Yeah, sure. So 2 things. 1, you can do anything you set your mind to without limitation. That's a lie, but you should do and believe anything that moves you towards your goals. And then the other one is what you build your self-esteem around matters. And I think far too often people don't understand that they have chosen to build their self-esteem around something, whether that's being successful, whether that's being better than other people, whether that's being rich, whatever it is. And they think that it is simply the truth of what you should build your self-esteem around. When in reality, everything, your deepest held values, the things you recognize as just being empirically true, almost all of it is just a choice that you made at some point, and it builds your frame of reference. And your frame of reference will determine the rest of your life. So, as Einstein said, the most important decision any of us has to make is whether we live in a friendly or a hostile universe. And what I find interesting about that quote is he said, it's a decision, and it is.
There you go. Mic drop. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.